Carnatic music, in Carnatic music, Bharatanatyam and Kuchipudi, besides Sanskrit, Telugu, and other languages, Hindustani music also. But right now, since this is a dance association, we will talk about Kuchipudi and Bharatanatyam right now. The certificate and diploma programs that we have are from the 9th grade onwards. So we have two different profiles of the certificate and diploma students. Students who have just come into the 9th grade take it, because the affidavit is very useful for them when they go to college. And our faculty is very good with the certificate. They literally mother the students and teach them very nicely with the theory and practical. Diploma also is the same. That is also a 1-year program. Only thing is you can spread it. You don't have to cram it and do it in 1 year. You can do one subject, one course every semester and spread it over 2 years and do it if they want to. But there is the master's program, which masters in Kuchipudi and masters in Bharatanatyam, which has 10 courses. And I take pride in saying we give a very comprehensive syllabus there. The whole program is online, and that makes it so much more, accessible to everybody. Yes. And I am a person who would never even go on Skype. I would say dance has to be learned in flesh and blood. But I have turned around and I'm doing a job in an online university. And it's incredible how technology can help us move ahead, because we have the learning management system of Canvas, the state-of-the-art system, on which students are joining in from Europe, from Dubai, Australia, America, India, and everywhere. I just feel all of you should make use of it, particularly those overseas should make use of these programs in certificate and diploma. And feel free to post my telephone number there with me. You're welcome to call me for any questions you have regarding either of the programs, Kuchipudi or
Sure, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah, typing in the chat box your contact number.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I can jump to the topic directly. The topic being, where is the Devadasi? So every dancer would have heard the term Devadasi, and the general understanding of the Devadasi is that she danced at the temples and then she fell to defame. So now there are no more Devadasis. Now we only have the dance forms that we have today: Kuchipudi, Bharatanatyam, Odissi, Kathak, Kathakali, Mohiniyattam, Chow, Hotria, and all the other forms. So these are the classical forms. I'm keeping the talk very basic. I'd like to answer questions. Maybe you can ask, and then that will be more interactive for us. And if you are comfortable, please come on camera. It's always nice to talk to faces, if you're okay with it. And it's also that, in our university, you need to come on camera. So we're used to having our students there on screen. Coming back to our Devadasi, around the 5th, 6th centuries, when up to now, we know that the formal temples that we know were constructed, definitely they were constructed much earlier, even in the 2nd century BC. But we will talk about the time when the Agamas were written. Agamas are those Sanskrit texts which talk about, Agamas are not Veda, but Agamas are those texts which talk about all the details of the temple. What place should you choose to construct a temple? What should the dimensions of the temple be? What direction does the deity face? What are the measurements of the deity? What are the pujas that should take place in a day, to this particular deity of this particular temple? Who should be the priest and who should the Devadasi be? Yeah, so essentially in the temple, the staff was the priest and the Devadasi. Now, See, I am also getting caught in this trap of talking about the Devadasi only with connection to the temple. It's not right. The temple came because the king came, right? Who constructs the temple? Only the one in power, the one who has the ability to construct and also take care of a certain system has to construct a temple. So that man has to be there, or that woman has to be there. That person has to be there first, right? So remember always that the king and God existed at the same time. The sense that court and the temple existed at the same time. It's not like it was the temple first, then they declined to court, and then they declined to zamindari, and then they declined to nothing at all, and then they disappeared. Please erase this story from your mind. They were at the same time, and the best of the dancers were actually committed to the temple. They say they were married to the temple. It's either called Kati Kalyanam or Pottukattutal, whatever it is called in different areas. It was not a marriage as such, it was a contract. The signing of the contract did not happen like a signing, but it happened through a ceremony where the girl was dedicated to the temple. Okay, so she was under contract to one particular temple to make sure there was no disturbance in this. She is committed to this temple. Who was the patron of the temple? The patron of the temple is the king, right? The patron of our temples is the government, endowments department. So at that time, the patron of the temple is the king. So from the king came the funds, and the Devadasi and the priest was given a place to stay by the temple. They were given lands on their name, which they did not own. These lands are called manyas. Okay, they did not own these lands, but they enjoyed the produce of these lands. What do I mean by this? What the Devadasi had to do was, the term Devadasi itself is complicated. I will talk about that also in due course. What the Devadasi had to do was, she had to take care of the land, make sure it gave a good produce, and from that produce, she and her whole family survived. Her duty to enjoy this produce was to offer dance in the temple or to the court, wherever she was doing it. This was her manya. Now, what happens after the Devadasi is done with her? There's a retirement, right? There's a shelf life for everything in this world. After her shelf life, what happens to the land and what happens to the service? Either at the court or the temple, what happens to the service? So the system was that the lady who was dancing, the Devadasi, had to prepare another dancer to take up her lineage, and this land will go on to that dancer while she offered services in the temple. Okay, now where did this dancer come from? She can be born to her, she can be born to another Devadasi, and that Devadasi, generally this is what happens. They would give their daughter to somebody else to learn dance from them, because we never learn from our parents from. So they are given to somebody else. So that it can be a daughter like that. It can be a daughter who is given by somebody from outside their families, dedication, where they say, okay, my daughter is showing a lot of talent, so I want her to become a dancer like you. Or they may say, we have no money to feed our daughter, so please take her so that she gets a good life, she at least gets food to eat. It could be that also. Sometimes they even bought daughters from poorer people who could not afford to take care of the children. They bought, not for trafficking, please. Yeah, for this seva, that there was this thing of buying daughters or taking in other girls to continue the lineage. So they taught the girl dancing and singing, and the girl made sure the service in the temple was continuing and the land was on her name. Are we together? in this matter till so far? Okay. What did the Devadasi do in the temple? Let's talk about the term Devadasi itself first, because you don't find the term Devadasi as we talk about it today as a blanket term for all women who danced in the temple anywhere, except in one Kannada Agama. You don't find it like that. In the Agamas also, they will say Dasi or Devas, Dasi, or things like that, but not as a combined name as such, right? This term, Devadasi, was only given during the colonial period. When I say colonial period, I'm talking about the period when the British ruled us, right? They were called, these, Leslie Orr calls them temple women, so I will also call them temple women. These women were called variously in various areas. Like in Orissa, they were called Maharis. In Tamil Nadu, they were called Ishai Velalar, but that name also came much later. In Andhra Pradesh, they were called Kadavanti. They were called Bogambaru, Sanivaru, or Kalavanti. So I will talk about Kalavanti because I come from the family of Kalavanti. I come from the family of Devadasis of the Telugu speaking areas of coastal Andhra. Right? Was it very different from that of Tamil Nadu? No, because at that time, when you look at Madras Presidency, you can look it up online. When you look at the map of Madras Presidency, you will find that except a little bit of Mysore and a little bit of Kerala, the whole of South India was one place. It was one unit. Yeah, so there was a lot of flux. You will find compositions of coastal Andhra being performed down south, deep south. You will find Varnams written deep down south in Telugu, performed by the Kalavanthulu women in coastal Andhra, singing in praise of Tanjore kings. So there was a lot of flux. We do not have this divide. But there is a difference in the content of the dance, in the sense the flavor of the dance. Okay, we all do stick dance. We do dandiya, we do kolatam, we do different kinds of dancing with the stick. But there is a difference in the style at each place. The kolatam down south is different from dandiya, right? Something like that is based on the indigenous flavor itself. So we have understood that the women were called variously in different states, right? But we will take the term Devadasi because that's the term everybody understands. And it's easy, it's one blanket term, right? If you look at their dance itself, what did the Devadasi do in the temple? So what happens in the temple is, she is involved in just about every activity in the temple, right from the time he wakes up to the time he sleeps. I live opposite the railway track, so you have to listen to the train. That's the train. Okay, now if the Devadasi is involved in waking him up, singing for him during the bhogam and through everything, but mostly during festivals. Yeah, during the festival, she had to be there at every stage of the performance ritual. Let me give you an example. There is something called the Baliharana. Baliharana, it is also called the Navasandhi. Right? This is performed in the temples, around the temple. What happens in this is, I would like you to understand that the very classical dances that we talk about all take their origin from the indigenous dances. They all come from the indigenous dances, and this is a research that Paduka Padmasubramanian has done way before anybody even spoke about it, much earlier. So when it comes from the indigenous dances, you will see how the flavor of it has changed as the size and the economy of the temple has changed, right? When the economy was just one small construction with 4 pillars, the same activity was done differently. Like marriages today, that simple marriage that took place with one thali is now a huge, I just vulgarly extravagant marriage, right? But I don't want to compare the ritual of the temple with that. Temple itself was a huge, like you have Madurai temple, you have the Brihadishwaralaya, just as an example. It's huge because it was not just a place of religion. It was a place of culture. I really want to talk about this to the youngsters who say, I don't want to talk religion. It's my own son who's 21 says this. But I know he will change. This will change. So I just want you to understand that religion is not something that is removed from our lives. Religion is culture. Basically, it is culture. But when you become fanatic about it, then it becomes when you become fanatic, it becomes divisive. And that is not what we do. So let's not talk religion, let's talk culture. The temple was one place where marriage alliances took place, romance took place, political dealings took place, economic dealings took place. Everything happened in the temple. This, I can vouch for it, that everything, whatever has to happen, you go to that particular temple in one corner and dance and music, right? So dance and music was in the middle of this whole social milieu. And there was also God there. In the temple, besides all this, there was also God. So after doing all this, the person would go to God, stay for a while and go. It's not like today. It's not like today where we quickly buy the coconut, run there, break the coconut, finish that archana, which we don't have time to listen to. We don't have the time to silence our phones. Then come out, sit for half a second because you're supposed to sit and then we run. That because we are doing that, we are forgetting the beauty about a temple. Right? Okay. This temple was home for so much culture. And who were the women who were connected with the temple? Not just the dancer singers. Of them, there were also the women who cleaned the temple, who made garlands, who brought flowers, who made sandal paste, who did all the other things. There were women who just sang, who did not want to dance. There were women who danced, who did not want to sing professionally. So there were all these women who were connected with the temple in different ways, were all called Devadasis. My family, for example, you might wonder why the Thakore affected my name. I'm married to a North Indian family. I'm a Telugu person from the Kadavantugu family, married to a North Indian family, Kshatriya family. So that's why the Thakore. But before marriage, my name is Chinagandham Yashoda. China is small. Chinna is small. Gandham is sandal paste. And my family, originally from my father's side, comes from Simhachalam, the eastern Andhra area. Simhachalam Narasimha Swami, Varaha Narasimha is a temple there, where our family made sandal paste. That's why they were called Chinagandham. So they danced, and they also their main duty was to make sandal paste for the Lord of Varaha Narasimha. Okay, that's father's side. My mother's side lineages that my Ammama, my mother's paternal grandmother, her father's mother. Am I confusing you? I'll tell you. My mother's father's mother, okay, was Madhuravani Pichayana, beautiful singer dancers who was patronized by the Annavaram temple zamindar. the person who took care, who patronized the temple of Annavaram, Satyanarayana Swami. All of us do our Katha, Satyanarayana Katha, that temple's lineage. Okay, so I have this lineage from both sides. So why I'm telling you this is not everybody sang and danced. Some of them, they did all these other chores. This is about the Devas. Now, I'm only talking from the 5th, 6th century, right? Then we don't have too much information after a while. We do have information, but we don't have information about what they danced in the temple. I was telling you about the Baliharana in the temple and the indigenous dances. The Baliharana is an act where there is the 7-day festival, Brahmotsavam of a temple, right? Every temple has it at different times. In this 7-day festival, every day, the priest and the Devadasi go around the temple and invite the Ashtadik Palakas, the deities of the 8 directions. They're all invited to come and take their place there. The priest invites him through the chant, shows him the seat, makes him sit there and gives him a bowl of rice. When it was earlier, during the Rigvedic time, it used to be meat, raw meat given. Later, it became rice, a bowl of rice, and saying, please sit here and make sure there are no negative elements coming from this side to take care of our Lord who is inside. Why? Because this God has to take care of the whole world. So the duty of the priest and the Devadasi. So why the Devadasi there? The priest is doing the job. Because the Devadasi was to please him. The Devadasi sang a raga that the Agama said this particular deity liked. And she took that particular posture and gait that the Agama said this particular deity liked. So she did that part in just about a minute or so, and she walked ahead. Both of them make each deity happy, and they keep going from deity to deity, establishing them and making them happy, and then saying, okay, now our Lord is safe. Our Lord is safe. You know, it is like Periyalma, where they are the ones who are taking care of the Lord. Because this Lord has to take care of society, of this whole creation. Yeah, their duty, they don't do asking the Lord anything. They do taking care of the Lord. Yeah, this was their duty there. What did they dance there? We don't know. We have no idea what they danced because it was so far, so long ago that there is nobody who can tell us, Amma, they did this. All they would tell us is small steps, only Nritta they did in each place. Amma, what Nritta did they do? We don't know. Yeah. So anything that we watch today is reconstructed. Let's be clear about that. Now, the next thing is, they also, at a later stage, they also did Varnams and Padams. They did the Salam Daru that you watched. Do you want to show them? Have I been talking for too long? Maybe a short break, but let me finish the temple part and then we can show you. They did the Salam Darus for the king and the court and the deity also, for the god also. Because generally the name was the same in both places. They had the same name, they danced this, but they did not dance Javalis because Javalis came much later. Only at Vodiyar's time, during the late 19th centuries, that was when they came. Okay, now, this was the temple, and at the court, the technicality of the dance was a lot more. So what was it at the court? They danced, they knew, of course, all of them knew their texts. Okay, let's be very clear about it. They knew their texts, they had to do their study, they had to sing, they had to practice, they did everything that was necessary. And they would go and in the court, they also had to answer questions of the scholars. So they did their homework. It's not like, they come back from their software company and then they do a little bit of dancing. No. Everything was connected to dance. Not to cut their hair, not to eat something, not to wear the sari in a particular way, or to wear the sari in a particular way. Everything about life was connected to what it would contribute to their dance. So if we are saying, so what, we also dedicated our lives to dance, that dedication is quite something else. It's just something else. Coming from the family, I cannot claim to be as dedicated as they were. Though I only do dancing, I don't do dancing also. I only do dancing, and my husband has a great grouse that I don't do anything in the house. So how the house runs, I want to ask him one day, but then still, I will say the same dedication that they had, I cannot claim. Okay. This is about, do you want to show them the Salam Darbar? I've been talking so much.
Yeah, okay, ma'am.
This Salam Darbar is a small piece from, it's generally performed across South India, and it is about the Tanjore king, the Maratha king, and the Nayaka, kind of combination of that's
Yeah, just give me a moment. I will share our man's dance. Okay.
The Salam Darbar is a piece of praise. It's a piece of praise in the name of God, God being an excuse to praise the king. It's usually the God's name that the king has, and the traits of the Lord are attributed to the king. And there is the typical salam to the side as the Maratha kings, the Tanjore kings, as against the colonial salam that's ahead. So we do this Salam Darbar where the courtesan praises the king, saying, "You are the one, Narasimha, the Lord Narasimha, as Prahlada, the young one, kept calling out to you. You are the one who came out of the pillar and you tore open the demon Hiranyakashipa's stomach and drank the blood and saved Narasimha, saved Prahlada." That's the valor part that was praised. And then she goes on to praise his romantic side, where she says, "You are the one who wears good jewelry, who wears lovely clothes, who rebels in fragrance, and you are the one without whom I cannot live." Tanjavuri Purisa, it is also about the king, Rama Pratapa, and the last paragraph of this is actually from another darbar which is attached, and it is usually performed traditionally as one piece. Salam Darbar in Ragamalika. Salam is a piece of praise. It's a piece of praise in the name of praise the king.
Yeah, one minute.
It's usually the god's name that the king has and the traits of the law.
Yeah, ma'am.
I'm sorry that was so long. I didn't realize it was so. And frankly, Urmi, I haven't seen the whole of that Dargu till now. Only today I sat and watched it.
Yeah, ma'am, but it was so beautiful. I just got lost into it.
It's as one of the comments said, yes, it's an old one and it's performed old in the sense it's recorded, it's just recorded while the performance was going. That's why I'm sorry for the quality of that.
No, it was very nice.
So, thank you, Urmi. This being about the temple, now we'll do a small jump. We have spoken about, we said there is no documentation of the dance itself or as the dancers as set guilds. till the Nayaka period. So we'll talk from the Nayaka period onwards, which is about the 15th, 16th century. The Nayaka kings were the ones who really patronized all arts, not just the Devadasis. And today, all our Kuchipudi, Bharatanatyam dancers and Bhagavata Mela, all the dancers, artists, owe our existence to the Nayaka kings. And the Kakatiya kings in the Andhra side, who were also great patrons of art. So the Kakatiyas were from the 13th century and the Nayakas. So we have to talk about these kings who kept these arts alive for us. Then came the Maratha kings after them. So far, so good. While the Maratha kings were there itself, the East India Company had taken over. We had the East India Company and the colonial influence, the British influence, begin. In fact, the last Maratha king was English educated, and he also brought in all the sensibilities of colonial sensibilities. Even religion-wise, he brought in the Catholic sensibilities also. It's not just him, but everywhere, the country, across the country, you had this Catholic English influence seeping into the psyche of people. We still suffer. We still suffer when we say, why is Krishna so effeminate? Why can't he be more man-like? Why should he be man-like? Okay, who tells us what is being man-like? The British told us. In our country, it did not have to be six-pack to be a man. In our country, our deities were slender and very delicate, but strong from the core, right? So these sensibilities trickling down into the minds also told us that these women who were not married, who had a patron, were extremely respected in society, were all prostitutes. They told us this, and we believed it. I'm putting it in very simple terms. We had these women who came and said, we had the British who came and told our men, they didn't tell the women, they told our men that those women that all of you respect are actually, they have no character, they have no, why are all of you so effeminate and so subservient to their power? Because here you will see that the woman had the power. She was the center stage, she was the earning member. She kept the family going. And the men were actually accompanying and helping. They were supporting the profession to go ahead, for all of them to live together. So, first of all the upper caste men were made bureaucrats by the British so that they were educated. There was only one category that was educated. And so these English educated men told everybody else, all other men, that we propitiate pagan gods. Pagan gods are animal gods. So that Narasimha that you just saw is an animal, Hanuman is an animal. So what is this culture of yours where you propitiate animals and trees and all that? Number one. What is this culture where, after all, the woman has so much respect? Why aren't you being a man and being the center point, the place of power? And what is this culture where an unmarried woman is having respect? Because in Europe, unmarried woman was considered a whore. When I say whore, it is a prostitute. I'm not demeaning the profession of prostitution. The profession of prostitution is a separate one, and the profession of the dancers is a separate one. Each has its own distinct qualities, right? We don't want to conflate the two, right? So just like the medical doctor doesn't like it when he or she is called a PhD doctor. I say, no, we are medical doctors. I say, no, I'm a PhD doctor. That we want to be what we are. We want to be known for what we are. So from here began the difficult days of the Devadasi, where she was asked, she was told that she was no good, and she had no, the kingship went away, right? There was also the zamindari system in between that we had. When the zamindari system existed, also the Devadasi was doing quite well. The Devadasi was, she was being patronized, her dance was being watched and respected. But after that, it went into a kind of saying, you have no livelihood, because they worked towards an act. Right from the 1800s, it first happened, the anti-notch began in the north, and then it came down south in the 1800s itself, when the 1827, a bill was passed against the Devadasi, the whole concept of the Devadasi itself. Nothing happened, though the bill was passed. There was no legal law to say they should stop dancing at that time, but the aspersions against the Devadasi was getting into the minds completely. Yeah. So at this point, the patronage for the Devadasi began to dwindle. She didn't have anything else to do. She didn't have the same respect as before. Now, at this point, what happens eventually is this bill became an act. There was an appeal for the abolition of the Devadasis, while the women of the Devadasi families kept asking and saying, please don't pass the act, educate us. If there is something that is a problem with us, let us know, and we will change, we will learn, we will live according to the society. But don't pass this act, because you will be losing the whole culture and you will be losing us too. Where do we go? In fact, in their appeal, they even ask, where do we go if you remove us from the surface of the earth? What happens to us? Is what they ask. But the British didn't pass the act. Okay, the British were very politically right. They didn't pass the act. As soon as the British left, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the government of India, passed the act by October. August, we got our independence. October, the act was passed. Once the act was passed, the women was just thrown out. And this act, remind you, was only for the women of the Devadasi families. It was not for any other woman who was dancing. So while this, to use Amrit Srinivasan's terms, while this reform was going on, that supposed reform by the nationalist leaders, nationalism was going on, where the Devadasi had to be removed, the act of the Devadasi had to come. There was one kind of a revival that was happening, which said the state was divided into the country was divided into different states, and different dance forms were coming up, and Bharatanatyam was formed. They said, okay, Bharatanatyam is based on the Natya Shastra, which interestingly was actually found only in the 1850s. Earlier than 1850s, nobody found any Natyam. It was not found. I'm not saying it did not exist. I'm just saying it was not there in usage earlier than that. So based on the Natya Shastra and taking the art from the women, but saying that this art has not come from any human body, but from Nataraja and the Sanskrit text of Natya Shastra, the country floated the dance form of Bharatanatyam as the esoteric, spiritual, divine dance, completely relegating the women into the background. Based on the same pattern, you had Odissi that came later, you had Kuchipudi that came later, on the same pattern where this kind of revival of dance, the dancers changed, the body of the dancers changed, the space of dancing changed, the time of dancing changed. When all this changed, there was a sudden respectability that came to the dance. What is this respectability? This respectability is what was sanctioned by the colonial rule. The this was the respectability that Britishers will say, okay, this is respectable. And so we say, okay, this is respectable. Yeah. So when the woman was dancing earlier in different spaces, it was not respected. Now, since the origin of dance becomes a male god, Nataraja, and it becomes a Sanskrit text, which is the Natya Shastra, it is all very respected. And it is danced by the non-Devadasi bodies. It is all respected. Now, so today, does the Devadasi exist? All of us hear the story of she doesn't exist anymore, right? She's not there anymore. Well, I'm here. My whole family is there. Are they all dancing? They're not dancing. But I'm here. And if my students are learning from me, I'm giving a streak of myself into them. So they're all carrying it, whether they like it or not. They're carrying a streak of this Devadasi on them. Every dancer, you cannot escape the Devadasi because she's just pervading this whole space. And she's saying, oh, you're dancing, which means it is me who are dancing. You may or may not know about it. So have we really eliminated the Devadasi? That's a question I will leave you with. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yashoda ma'am, for this beautiful journey. You have really made us reach there.
So I have another colleague here, I must acknowledge. Devi is my colleague at the University of Silicon Valley. She teaches Kuchipudi at the university.
Yeah.
And she's quite a right hand for me. Devi, thank you for the alerts. I changed the angle of my camera so that my husband is not seeing behind. We don't want any men, the story of women, right?
Would you like to say a few words, Devi ma'am? One minute, I'll just unmute participants. Yes, ma'am. Now you can unmute yourself.
Namaste, everyone. Namaste, ma'am. Yashoda ma'am I'm not Yashoda ma'am's colleague. Yashoda ma'am used to teach us when we were in HCU doing our MA. She was our guest faculty there. So from then I know Yashoda ma'am, and it's always listening to her is like always an enriching experience. This is another experience which I didn't want to miss. So yeah, I think her journey with Kuchipudi and her journey of finding her own roots is something that that inspires every dancer in this contemporary era, because it's also necessary to know what our roots are, culture, where we belong to, and then we have to speak it through our own performing tradition, whichever one we follow. So we are all great fans of Yashoda ma'am, and then that is why I am here.
Yeah, Sujata ma'am, would you like to say something?
Same thing here also. I already told you, wherever I see the YouTube videos of her, Yashoda, talking about dance, Kalavantulu and Devadasis, I'm there. And I will watch it again and again, and I'm really, like, we go back to that period and really touched when she said that word, right? Really touched. And that was the actual happening at that time. Of course. So it's memorable, and each and every time we get a clue word of understanding something new, or though she said it was just a basic level of lecture, of course, yeah, for many of them. For many students, it's very interesting to know. But each and every time we get something in that, and we need to probe into it and go. and understand. So that's so beautiful. So nice.
Thank you, Sujata.
Yeah, so ma'am, can we open the floor for question and answers? Yeah, so participants, you can unmute yourself and ask directly. And if you want, you can unmute your videos also, so ma'am can interact with you and you can ask your questions directly. Any participants?
Namaskaram. Am I
Yes.
audible?
Yeah, Sasirika ma'am, yes.
Yeah. I would like to know what is your take on, doing Navasanthi Kautvams today on stage? Do you do that in Kuchipudi or is it only in Bharatanatyam?
In Kuchipudi, we don't do it. Basically, also because Kuchipudi has a multitude of origins in it, right? It's quite an eclectic mix of so many art forms itself. It basically takes from the theatre form of Yakshagana. It takes from the Kalapa. Yes, it takes from Devadasi, where the solo comes in. So somehow, somewhere, the temple part of the Devadasi has not come into Kuchipudi. That need to connect with the ritualistic part of the temple is not there in Kuchipudi, and I must say I'm glad. Because the purpose, it's very beautiful. I don't blame the dancers for dancing to the Navasanthi, because it's very danceable, it kicks you to dance when you hear it. But I just feel
to see that in Rangbag, in Swapna Sundariyaka,
yeah, so
that they did. So my question is, like when we do, does it have any demerits? அதாவது ஒரு பூஜையை ஒழுங்கா பண்ணலன்னா அதுல கொஞ்சம் தீமைகளும் வரலாம் இல்லையா? That is fine.
I personally could not do it. I was not comfortable doing it on stage. That is one reason also that I stopped doing it. I think it's a matter of personal choice, but I believe that there is a certain ethos about doing it in the temple. Even the chant, it's about the dance itself is reconstructed, so I can't comment about it in connection to the Devadasi. But the chant is not reconstructed. Chant has been there for all the time. The Tavil and the Nadaswaram and all that, the sound of it, the temple ambience, and everything has been always been there. Do I want to do it on the stage? Yes, if the stage is also maintained, is also as consecrated as the temple. Yeah, like Kerala, you do Kutambalam. On Kutambalams, you don't have public meetings, do you? Do you
Thank
have
you.
Political meetings and public meetings?
No, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Yes, Jyoti ma'am. Yeah.
Jyoti ji, please.
I don't have a. Thank you so much. I feel so honored. I don't have a question. All I want to say is I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart that you have given such a beautiful insight to this entire community, if I may say so. Pardon me if I'm using the wrong word, of the Devadasis. You have managed to, revive the pride that so rightfully belongs to them, despite all the social persecution and all the kind of muck and filthy language that were used. I'm sorry to say this. I'm extremely hurt when I'm saying this, but that's the stark truth. And I just want to give a huge bow to you that you have braved all this. You've given a nice slap to the society and you've come up like a phoenix out of the ashes that they've tried to push you in. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. Without a person like you, if you had not displayed this bravery to come out and speak about this without mincing your words, we, and I think along with me, many of the other social people belonging to the so-called big society would still be associating them with this particular beautiful dancers clan, I would say, with the same stupid stigma that they are used to. I am deeply indebted to you, and I'm so happy that ICDA has come up with this kind of today's session. I have no words. Seriously, I'm choking. I'm overwhelmed. I just wish that Ambal grants you lots and lots of opportunities to dispel the stupid thought that is still there in the society. And may she bless you with a long and healthy life, and may you continue this legacy beautifully. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jyoti ji. Thank you so much. First of all, it's a privilege to have you here. I'm so happy. Thank you.
Pranam Akka. Actually, Jyoti has already taken all the words.
Who is
And
talking?
Shalini here.
Asha.
Really mind-blowing. Everything what you said and explained, it was mind-blowing. Jyoti has actually stolen on my words. So my Danvat Pranam to you, Akka. So one thing I wanted to just ask is actually two. You mentioned that somehow the temple ethos has not gone into Kuchipudi. Do you mean the spiritual part of it? Or is it become just a Lokadharmi?
No, because basically Kuchipudi comes from the indigenous forms of Pagativesham or dance drama, Yakshaganam. And we have dances everywhere, right? Did I get the name right? No, I didn't call you right. I didn't address you. Can't see you. Getting old. Sri Lanka. Okay. Right. So basically, it's not just in the temple that dance existed in this country, right? There is dance everywhere. You had men dancing, indigenous dances. You had theatre forms, beautiful theatre forms. So similarly, we had the Pagativesham and the Veedi Natakam. We had the Parsi theatre, we had the Yakshagana. So Kuchipudi takes its first origins from there. Then it also adds the semi-theatre form of Kalapam that was also performed by the indigenous groups. I hate the word marginalized, but I have to use that for people to connect with what I'm saying. With the non-Brahmin groups, let us say, the other groups that also perform the Kalapam. So it takes a little bit from there. It takes from the theatre forms. Then it takes from the Devadasi style. The whole solo repertoire comes from the Devadasi style. So it's like Kathakali. Like Kathakali is a combination. It takes from Ramanatam, Krishnatam, Teyyam, Kudiyatam. So Kuchipudi also similarly. Only difference is all the forms that Kathakali has taken from exist and flourish, while all the forms Kuchipudi has taken from are struggling to flourish, struggling to even exist. That's the sad difference, but we will undo that. It's not finished.
And
that's the only thing. Yeah.
Akka, what about because Odissi had Gotipuas doing, and it is called Mahari. And you were right when you see the Gotipuas and the Mahari are, and today what Odissi is being done is totally different.
Yes.
So
Yes, absolutely.
You have any
because today's Odissi, I can't tell you the date exactly. I think it's 1956 or something, Devi. I can't remember. Yeah. After independence, just around Odisha was formed. It was at that time when Odissi was formed. Over 2 days' time, the one that we watch today, the Odissi that we see today, across 2 days, across a conference table, with the bureaucrat and Kelu Babu sitting there and a few other gurus, taking sculptures and the Natya Shastra, and Kelu Babu himself coming from the Mahari family, being a husband of a Mahari, a fantastic Mahari whose name we don't know. We only know Kelu Babu's name. Okay, so
Priyamvada Mohanty.
No, what I mean is,
yeah, not known to the world. Not known to the world. Yeah.
We don't talk about We don't talk about Priyamvada's dance. We talk about Kelu Babu's Odissi. Right? So taking all these sensibilities into the body, bringing them together, Odissi was formed and floated. It had the power of bureaucracy behind it, the support of bureaucracy, which is so important, right? Patronage. And it's a beautiful form that has come out. My problem is not when new forms come with the new classical dances. My problem is when the source or the origin of the form is not spoken about. You must talk about the origin of the form. The ingredients have to be spoken. Because when you don't talk about the ingredients, the final dish is forgotten after consumption. Over a period of time, the dish is forgotten. It's just gone. The source and the ingredients have to be in place and perpetuated. Yeah. Yes, Jyoti.
Just one more point. I forgot to mention this. Another bow to your humility, ma'am. I would like to say this in Tamil. இவ்வளெல்லாம் நீங்க ஆராய்ச்சி பண்ணி அதை படிச்சு இவ்வளெல்லாம் பண்ணி ஒரு பெரிய உங்க வாழ்க்கையோட ஒரு பெரிய பாகமே இதுக்குன்னு மாத்தி வச்சு இவ்வளவு எல்லாம் பண்ணதுக்கு அப்புறம் கூட துளி கூட உங்கள ஒரு அகங்காரம் இல்லை. அது பார்த்து இந்த யங் ஜெனரேஷன் கத்துக்கணும். ஒரு குட்டி ஒரு பெர்ஃபார்மன்ஸ் பண்றதுக்குள்ள என்ன மாதிரி யாராவது இருக்காளாங்கிற மாதிரி எண்ணம் வந்துடுறது. உங்களை மாதிரி இருக்கிறவளை பார்த்து கத்துக்கணும். பணிவுனா என்னது, குரு பக்தினா என்னது, அப்பா அம்மாவை மதிக்கிறது என்னது, கடவுளுங்கிற ஒரு சக்தி இருக்கு, அதை பார்த்து வணங்குறதுக்கு கத்துக்கணும்மா. Thank you so much. Now I won't chew others' brains. Thank you so much. I've said what I wanted to say.
No, Jyoti, thank you very much. That is one thing my mother would never take. If my nose went up 1 inch, immediately the tap on the head would come. Bring it down. Thank you.
Yeah, anyone else, participants, wants to ask?
Namaskaram, ma'am. Nisha Pradeep here. Ma'am, I have one question. As dancers, how do we make sure that we are not culturally appropriating as we, learn and go? How can we make? Because many times I think we don't realize that we are being part of it, but we are being part of it. So how do we make sure that we become responsible dancers?
So Nisha, my whole effort in talking about the Devadasi and the origins and also the very troublesome history, definitely there was oppression. Let's be straight. Let's put this very frankly. Definitely there was oppression from the upper caste Brahmin families and from the British. From men, there was extreme patriarchy. Basically, the whole thing began from patriarchy. From patriarchy, it went into something called caste. Caste that was never a part of our country. What was part of our country was the Varna system, which can be surpassed. For example, the Nayaka kings themselves actually were Shudras. After they traveled from the Andhra area to down south and they took a little bit of land and they tilled it, they got their money, they became big and they became the owners of the land and then they became kings, then they became Kshatriyas, which meant that in this culture, it's not as easy as I'm saying, okay? Definitely there is oppression at every stage. I'm not undermining the suffering of people from the lower caste. But I'm saying there is a difference in caste, race, color, right? Race and color is something you are stuck with all your lives. Even if you become Barack Obama, they will tell you a black has become president. You're still carrying it. He was the best president probably. But still, you will say the black has become a president. He was very good. So he was being patronizing again. This caste is something that was applied to us. It is a Western concept that came and then we were casted. Literally, we were casted. made into castes. So making this caste, then we were told, at least the lower castes, after they became castes, they were told, you put yourself in this category, then you will get reservations in the government. You will go to school, you will get good jobs. And we got them. My father, who comes from a very, very modest family, he comes from a background where he had only 2 pairs of shorts and 1 shirt, and who could not go to school till he was 10. He retired, he studied, he got his scholarships, he worked very hard, became an engineer. He retired as additional managing director, State Road Transport Corporation. Very good, learned, educated, generous, supported at least 500 people in his life. I need to go and give him dinner. That my father, still people will say, Seshagiri Rao garu, chala goppayanandi, enta mandiki help chesaru. Meeku telusa, backward class nunchi vacharu. Aina enta goppavadu. He is a very great person. He comes from a backward class. Still, he is such a great person. Why are we carrying that baggage? So I will turn around and say, we have been castized and put in the backward class community. We are grateful for the benefits that they have given us. Thank you very much. We don't need it anymore. My father did not take a caste certificate for me. He said, you don't need it. I have come to a position where I can take care of you. You don't need a reservation from the government. Can we do that? Now, the onus is not on the upper caste. It is on the caste themselves. They have to work towards not having to take the certificate and saying, we are not marginalized. So, okay, the question, I didn't address the question you asked. So my whole argument here is not to make the dancers of today feel bad and not to put guilt into their lives, but to tell you that we will come back. The stigma, I only remember Pradeep because it's part of my husband's Nisha. The stigma, Nisha, is so strong and for so many generations that today my sisters don't attend my Devadasi dance performances, They only come if I'm doing Kuchipudi. My own sisters, children of the same parents. My father will come, my mother came, but my sisters will not because their husbands don't like it. Patriarchy coming in. Yeah? Okay. I'm saying, but we will come back. My niece has begun to dance. We will come back. When we come back, please receive us. Receive us. I'm preparing the ground for my grandchild to come back to dancing, for my granddaughter. I want to tell them, Kana, the dance world is actually very beautiful. They know about us and they respect us. You come from a beautiful, respected family. And the dancers out there are also very, very empathetic and appreciative of us. Come, let's all dance together. All of us, they and us, let's all be together and dance together. So the very basic argument about caste is demolished because in our communities, fathers are all different. So how do we come under one caste? First of all, number one. Second thing is, how can you dance without guilt? By acknowledging that the dance comes from the Devadasis. By acknowledging that you're carrying a ghost on you. You're carrying a ghost on you. I'm sorry, I'm making this spooky, but you are.
That's so true, ma'am. I think that awareness itself is very important. Like as we learned and when we were young, we were not aware of any of this. So, it was very, I've listened to a lot of your talks and yours, Anupama ma'am's, and so that really helped me understand, what that history is. So very, very thankful for this to ICDA as well as you, ma'am. It's such a great talk. I mean, when you say and explain, things just fall into place. We start understanding so much more. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nisha. But a small disclaimer is it's not as simple as I said it. There are layers and layers. There's a lot of multiplicity to it. So it's not something that can be understood in one day's lecture.
Right.
But the mind has to be open to understand that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, I think we can wind up the session, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, it was
Thank you very much, Urmi.
great, and really I want to tell all the participants that Yashoda ma'am is so simple. Like on my just my first message, she accepted the invitation of coming here and spreading her knowledge, her experience. And I'm really very grateful and very obliged from the bottom of my heart for Yashoda ma'am. And you'll always be like, for me, what to tell. And I don't have words to say, but so simplified, I can't imagine. Like I've seen so many dancers, I've contacted so many people, but just at the one message, can you imagine just a WhatsApp message? Like we can imagine how simple she is, how like humble she is, and she just accepted the invitation in first go. Really very
Thank you very much.
grateful on behalf of ICDA. Thank you so much, ma'am, and thank you all the participants. Thank you, Sujata ma'am, for attending today's session. You have made it a really special session. So thank you.
Thank
And
you.
always we want that we are trying our best to get all eminent artists, but please support us by attending the sessions, because we are also taking a lot of pain, a lot of hard work, going after the guest, then preparing the posters, putting the invitations again and again, putting it on the social media, Facebook, Instagram, and we are all doing it everything voluntarily, just to get benefited, the whole dance fraternity, and come together. Like we all are one family. So just support us. Yeah, that will be more than enough from all of you. So thank you so much. Had a great evening.
Thank you, Urmi. Just as a last word,
Yeah.
do look at the University of Silicon Andhra. We do a lot of this. We do a lot of this complex history at the university. And there are a lot more Yashoda ma'ams at the university. So you'll enjoy yourself.
Yeah, ma'am. And definitely I'll share in the WhatsApp groups your Kuchipudi, the PDF. Definitely I'll share it. Thank you, ma'am, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Urmi.
Thank
And
you,
thank you
Sujata.
so much,
Thank you
Yashoda.
so much.